My name is Priya Nair. I am 36 years old. I am a senior financial analyst at a mid-sized investment firm in Portland, Oregon, and I have not spent Christmas with my family since I was 29. That is not a complaint. It took me a long time to understand that, but it is not a complaint. It is simply the shape my life took after a series of choices, some mine, most theirs, that made the distance between us something other than geographical. I want to tell you how it started, because the beginning matters more than people think. It was not one dramatic moment. It was something quieter and more persistent than that. It was a pattern so consistent that by the time I finally named it, it had already been running for years. I grew up in a family of 4 in a suburb outside Sacramento. My parents, my older brother Vikram, and me. My father worked in insurance. My mother managed a small tailoring business from home. Vikram was 3 years older, louder, funnier at dinner tables, the kind of person who filled rooms and got remembered at parties. I was the quieter one. I got good grades without announcing them. I read books people in my family had not heard of. I had opinions that did not always match the ones already present in the house. My mother loved me, I believe, in whatever proportion she had available after Vikram had taken his share. My father was a steady, distracted man who showed affection by not asking too many questions. It was not a cruel childhood. I want to be precise about that. It was a childhood in which I was consistently the secondary concern, which is its own particular kind of loneliness. When I left for college in Portland at 18, I think all of us exhaled. I fit better at a distance. I called on Sundays. I came home for major holidays. I sent birthday cards on time. I was, from a distance, a good daughter and a good sister. The friction only happened up close. After graduation, I stayed in Portland. I built a career methodically, the way I did most things, steadily, without drawing too much attention to the progress. By my late 20s, I was earning more than anyone in my family knew, because I had learned early that announcing success in that house produced not pride, but a particular kind of assessment, a measuring of what you had against what you owed. The last Christmas I attended was when I was 29. Vikram had just gotten engaged to a woman named Sunita, and the entire holiday had been constructed around celebrating them, which was fine. I was genuinely happy for him. What was not fine was that at dinner, when I mentioned a promotion I had received that month, my mother nodded once and turned back to asking Sunita about wedding venues. My father said that was good and reached for the bread. Vikram did not look up from his phone. I drove back to Portland on the 26th and sat in my apartment and thought for a long time about what it would cost me to keep doing this. Keep showing up. Keep being the person who traveled and called and remembered and received, in return, the minimum required for the relationship to technically still exist. I decided to stop calculating the cost, and then, quietly, I stopped going. The first year, my mother called in early December and asked when I was arriving. I told her I had made other plans. She asked what plans. I said I was spending the holiday with friends. She was quiet for a moment and then said that was a shame and that Vikram would be disappointed. Vikram did not call. The second year, my mother sent a text 2 weeks before Christmas asking if I was coming. I said no. She replied with a single word, "Okay." By the third year, nobody asked. I am not going to perform more pain about this than I actually felt, because the truth is that by year 3 the silence had become easier to carry than the obligation had been. I had friends in Portland. I had built a life that fit me in a way my family home never quite had. I spent those Christmases with people who were glad I was there, which turned out to feel entirely different from spending them with people who had simply expected me to show up. I thought about my family, of course. I wondered sometimes how they explained my absence to relatives. I wondered whether Vikram's children, when they arrived, would know who I was. I wondered whether my parents talked about me or had simply filed me into the category of things that had not worked out the way they planned. I did not wonder enough to call. 7 years passed the way years do when you are busy building something, one at a time, and then suddenly in a group. The call came on a Tuesday morning in November, 7 years and 4 months after the last Christmas dinner I attended. I was at my desk reviewing a client portfolio when my phone showed my mother's name. I stared at it for 2 full rings. We had spoken perhaps 6 times in the past year, brief calls, surface-level exchanges that confirmed we were both alive and not much else. I answered. Her voice was warm in a way it had not been in a long time. She asked how I was. She asked about work. She asked whether I was seeing anyone. I answered carefully, the way you answer when warmth arrives without explanation and you are not yet sure what it is attached to. We talked for 20 minutes. It was the longest conversation we had had in years. At minute 18, I felt something loosen slightly in my chest, some small hope that maybe the distance had done what distance sometimes does. Clarified things, made people miss what they had taken for granted. Then she said it. We need a small favor. The bank requires a cosigner on the loan. Your father and I have looked at everything and your credit history is the strongest in the family. Vikram tried, but his debt-to-income ratio is a problem right now. It would just be your signature, a formality. I was quiet for long enough that she said my name to check I was still there. What is the loan for? I asked. She explained. Vikram and Sunita had found a property, a commercial space they wanted to convert into a restaurant. They had the concept, they had some savings, but the loan amount required a cosigner with strong credit and verifiable income. The amount was $340,000. How long have they been planning this? I asked. About 8 months, she said. 8 months of planning, 7 years of silence, 20 minutes of warmth on a Tuesday morning in November, and here we were. I need to think about it, I said. Of course, she said. Take your time, but the application window closes in 3 weeks. I did not make any decisions that day. I am a financial analyst. I understand debt structures, risk profiles, and what it means to put your name on a $340,000 obligation for a restaurant opened by people who had not invited you to Christmas in 7 years. I pulled Vikram's business plan, which my mother emailed over that same afternoon with a speed that told me it had been ready and waiting. I read it carefully. The concept was not unreasonable. The location had potential. The financial projections were optimistic in the way that most first-time restaurant projections are optimistic. They accounted for the best version of everything and left very little room for the version that actually happens. I called a colleague who specialized in small business lending and described the situation without using any names. She listened and then said, quietly, if that restaurant underperforms in the first 18 months, the cosigner takes the hit, not partially, fully. I already knew that, but hearing it from someone else made it settle differently. I thought about the phone call, about 20 minutes of warmth after 7 years of nothing, about a favor described as a formality, about my name on a document for a business I had no role in, no visibility into, and no ability to influence. I thought about my mother's voice in that call and whether any part of it had been genuine or whether it had been entirely constructed for the purpose of getting me to yes. I decided I needed to know the answer to that before I made any decision at all. I drove to Sacramento the following weekend. I did not tell anyone I was coming. I wanted to see the room before anyone had time to arrange it. My mother opened the door and looked genuinely surprised, which told me something. She recovered quickly, hugged me, called into the house for my father. Vikram was there with Sunita and their 2 children, a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old I had met exactly once, at a birthday party my mother had mentioned 3 days before it happened. The 4-year-old looked at me with the calm assessment of a child who does not know who you are but is willing to find out. I crouched down and told her my name. She told me hers was Mira and that she had a fish called Orange. I told her that was an excellent name for a fish. That was the best moment of the visit. Dinner was careful. Nobody mentioned the loan directly. My father asked about Portland. Sunita described the restaurant concept with a genuine enthusiasm that I found, despite everything, difficult not to respond to. Vikram was quieter than I remembered him being. He looked tired in the way people look when something they want very much is just out of reach, and they are trying not to show how much it costs them. After dinner, when Sunita had taken the children upstairs and my father had fallen asleep in front of the television, my mother and Vikram and I sat at the kitchen table. Vikram looked at his hands. "I know this is a lot to ask," he said. "It is," I said. "I know we haven't," he stopped. Started again. "I know things have been distant. 7 Christmases," I said. Not as an accusation, just as a number, a fact that existed in the room and deserved to be acknowledged. He nodded. My mother looked at the table. "I didn't handle that well," Vikram said. "The truth is, I didn't handle a lot of things well. When you left and built something and it was so clearly working, I think I told myself you preferred it that way, that you didn't need us." "I didn't need to be managed," I said. "That's different from not needing people." My mother looked up. "I should have called more," she said. "I knew every year that I should call, and I didn't." These were not grand apologies. They were small, imprecise, slightly uncomfortable admissions from people who were not practiced at making them. They were also, as far as I could tell, genuine. That did not resolve the question of the loan. I told them I would give them my answer within a week. I drove back to Portland on Sunday and spent 4 days thinking about the difference between two things. The first thing was the loan itself, the risk, the exposure, the $340,000 sitting against my name for a business I could not control. The second thing was what I actually wanted, not what I owed them, not what the history demanded, not what a good daughter or a good sister was supposed to do. What I, Priya Nair, age 36, actually wanted from the people I had grown up with. The answer to the second question turned out to be simpler than I expected. I wanted to be known by them. Not managed, not assessed, not brought in when useful, known. Whether this loan was the beginning of that, or simply a transaction dressed in the language of family, that was what I could not yet determine. I called Vikram on Thursday, not my mother, Vikram. I told him I would co-sign under 3 conditions. First, I would have full access to the business financials on a monthly basis. Second, there would be a written family agreement, separate from the bank documents, outlining repayment expectations and my right to withdraw support if the business materially deviated from the plan without consultation. Third, and I was precise about this, the financial arrangement was not a restoration of a relationship. That part would have to happen separately, slowly, on its own terms. He was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "That's fair." "I know," I said. I co-signed the loan in December. The restaurant opened the following spring. It has been operating for 14 months. It is not thriving, but it is not failing. It is doing the hard, ordinary work of a new business finding its footing, which is exactly what the realistic version of the projections suggested it would be doing. Vikram sends me the financials on the 1st of every month. Sometimes he adds a note. Last month, the note said that Mira had renamed the fish and that the new name was purple despite the fish being, as he described it, definitively orange. I replied that Mira had strong convictions and that this would serve her well. My mother called on December 25th last year, just to talk. I was at a friend's house and I stepped outside into the cold to take the call, and we spoke for 30 minutes about nothing important. About the restaurant and Mira and what Portland winters are like, and whether I still made the lentil soup she had taught me when I was 12. I told her I still made it. She said she was glad. It was not a restoration, it was a beginning, which is a different and more fragile thing. Beginnings require attention. They require both people to keep choosing them past the point where the initial effort has faded. I do not know yet whether that is what will happen. I know that 7 silent Christmases cannot be solved by one phone call, no matter how warm the voice on the other end sounds. I know that a loan is not a relationship and a signature is not forgiveness. I know that the things people do when they need you tell you something, but the things they do when they don't need you tell you more.